to What Do You Do with a BA in Theater, a new video series presented by Dallas Summer Musical's Education and Community Partnerships Department. My name is Seth Johnson, and I'll be your host for this series. So what do you do with a BA in Theater? Well, we're going to find out. Throughout the series, we will be interviewing artists who have used their degrees in unique ways, whether they have degrees in theater or not. These individuals are great examples of the various doors that theater can open in your lives. So now I'd like to introduce my guest for this episode, Caleb. Caleb, why don't you introduce yourself? Just tell us your name, occupation, where you went to school, things like that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Caleb Graves. I am a lawyer by day, and I got my undergrad degree at the University of Texas at Austin, and then I went to law school in Georgetown in DC.
Awesome. How was that, the transition from undergrad to grad school for law? Did you go right away, or did you have to think about it?
No, so I wasn't sure at the end of college that that's what I wanted to do. So I took a little bit of a break. I taught high school for a couple of years up in the DC area. So I did that in between. Then I came back to Texas to work on a campaign briefly before deciding to finally go to law school.
Gotcha. Okay. So why did you choose to move to DC?
So I always had an idea of living in DC since I was not super young, but I guess growing up, teenage years, it just seemed like I visited there a couple of times and seemed like a city I really liked and really wanted to try out living there. So when I applied to do the teaching program, I really wanted to be in that area, and that's where they placed me. So that's what sent me that way.
Awesome. Okay, so what is your favorite part of being a lawyer?
Favorite part of being a lawyer is being able to argue, and that comes in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of people have an idea that, lawyers are frequently in the courtroom, standing up, doing the very clinching argument that wins the case, like they may see on TV, and that definitely happens from time to time, but it's not extremely frequent. Lawyers actually aren't in the courtroom all that often. And when they are, it's usually not a trial. So, but there's always arguing going on, at least in the type of law that I do. So sometimes that's still with the side you're up against, but it may be over a phone call or a smaller hearing. Also maybe through writing, whether you're writing a motion or a brief or trying to get a case thrown out, whatever you may be doing, but it comes in a lot of different forms.
Gotcha. And so on the flip side of that coin, your theater career, how did you discover theater? I'm assuming it's Legally Blonde, but
Got it.
How was that journey for you?
So I really haven't been doing theater much in that time of teaching high school, then going to law school and starting this job. I did some when I was younger, but not really a lot since then in high school, and then more actively in college. I did competitive speech. So some of that has some performance type events that are not really theater at all, but uses some of the same pieces of literature or things like that you might see performed on stage. So I was still doing some performance stuff all the way through college. But then when I got to Dallas, when I moved here late 2018, I wanted to tap more back into creative things and starting to do a little more acting work and sought out some theater opportunities, and then got a really great opportunity to work with you actually, and a lot of other great people in a play called Cherry Muffins. So that's what I've been doing lately.
Awesome. We've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but what are some of the skills that you've learned through theater that have helped you as a lawyer, or vice versa? What are some skills as a lawyer that you've incorporated into your theater work?
So I think both of them, although at face value seem extremely different, there's actually a lot of overlap and some really core things that you have to do. And the main one is performance. I mean, obviously you're performing when you're doing theater, you're on stage, but you're doing it a lot as a lawyer too, not just when you're in the courtroom. And that happens the most prominently when you're in the courtroom. You have a really important audience, either a judge or a jury, so you have to be very careful of not just what you're performing, but how you're performing it. So for, I guess, one in one direction, theater helps me in performance in general outside of work, helps me think more thoughtfully about how I perform in a lawyer atmosphere, whether that's in courtroom or whether that's in, a meeting across the table where you're arguing with an opposing side. It's not just, it's not always about what you're saying, because they may be expecting what you're saying, but it's how you craft, your language, your words, the way you deliver it. But in the other direction, I guess, from a lawyer to being on stage, is when you're as a lawyer, you have, like I mentioned, really important audience who's a big decision maker and is going to decide the outcome of whatever you're working on. It's a little different when you're on stage or in theater, but some things are pretty similar. I mean, your audience is going to decide first how you feel about your performance, maybe, but also how the performance is reviewed, how the show is reviewed, how things move forward. So you're more thoughtful about who your audience is, what you want to do to really capture their attention, what you can do yourself as part of a bigger team to sort of bring out the most that you can give to that performance.
Awesome. So do you have any advice for any young artists that are emerging out of high school and looking to go to college to pursue the arts, or not pursue the arts, but keep the arts in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can give the perspective of someone who wasn't primarily focused on that going through college, and even my professional life, is if it's not something that is going to be the primary focus and you're seeking other things, seek out those opportunities, because extracurriculars are really great, because hopefully it's something you're seeking out because it's really fun and something you need to do. I sought out, to do more acting, more theater, because not just it was fun for me, but it was something I felt like I needed to do for my own fulfillment. So make the time. Don't think you don't have enough time, because if it's that important to you, you should be able to make the time for it. So I would just say seek those out in whatever way you can. Could be different forms. It doesn't have to be, the main stage production of whatever's going on around you, but there could be lots of smaller opportunities, and just do whatever way you can to sort of fulfill that need you have.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, how did you, as somebody who was kind of outside of the theater world, rediscover the theater world in Dallas? And do you have any tips on the first initial jumping in?
Yeah, so do a lot of research. I did. Dallas is, I think, pretty fortunate. I can't really compare it to other cities, but there's a lot of great resources online that do a really good job of keeping up with open auditions or casting calls or workshops or classes or whatever else. So you can't sit around and wait for someone to hand it to you or to ask you to come do stuff with them. If you want to do it enough, you're going to have to do the research and the work, and it's out there. So, don't be afraid to fail. I've done a lot. I got back into this after doing it for not a long time, and knowing that some auditions were going to go well. And I just did it because every audition was a good learning experience, but also just a way to force myself to get back into it. So you've got to seek it out. You've got to want to do it. But if you want to do it, just do the research. The opportunities are probably there.
So I actually can speak to the amount of theater in Dallas. Dallas actually has the most equity houses in Texas. So a lot of people initially think of Houston as the theater scene in Texas, which Houston has an amazing theater program and stuff like that. But Dallas actually has more equity houses and professional theaters that can pay you just in our Metroplex than Houston does, which is surprising. And we also have a number of theaters that have Tony Awards. Dallas Summer Musicals has 2 in the building, but a ton overall as both a producing organization and as a touring organization. And not a lot of people know that. So it's just a good thing to realize that, like, hey, even if you are in Dallas, like if you want to start your career here, there is a place for you and there's a lot of opportunities here. And if you leave and decide to come back, that's fine too. Yeah, your journey is your own. Yeah. So at this point of the interview, we will have a special musical guest, and I will insert this clip here.
And Omar Sharif came floating on a jasmine wind from the west, from the south, honey in my ear, spice in my mouth, dark and thrilling, strange and sweet, Cleopatra and a handsome prince, and they floated in on a jasmine wind, Kulthum and Omar Sharif, and they floated in on a jasmine wind, Kulthum and Omar Sharif. Friday evening, Omar Sharif, in black and white and bloody through tears. My mother and I would sit there in a trance. He was cool to the marrow, the pharaoh of romance. Sunday morning, her voice would fill our living room, and the sheep from Egypt always came sailing out of radio waves, and the jasmine wind, deep perfume, and the living room became a garden, and the TV set became a fountain, and the music flowed in the garden, and everything rose. Kulthum and Omar Sharif came floating on a lemon leaf, flying in on a jasmine wind, Kulthum and Omar Sharif, and we danced with them on a jasmine-scented wind, Kulthum and Omar Sharif.
That was great. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, Caleb, for being our guest. We really appreciate it. Remember that Dallas Summer Musicals is a resource for you. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, or send us an email. We are happy to help. We definitely want to be available for you at this time. Wash your hands, stay inside, and we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And we're clear.